Hello and welcome to the Almost 30 podcast.
Hello, everybody. Special episode coming at you.
Very special episode. If you are new to Almost 30, this is a little bit different than any other episode that we've done. In this episode, we're going to be bringing to you the most insightful, inspirational, powerful components of Camp Almost 30.
Yeah, we recently had Camp Almost 30 on July 24th, where we were joined by thousands of you all over the world. It was so powerful. And this guest lineup, I have to say, is one of my proudest moments.
Agreed.
You know?
Yes.
We were sitting there, Krista and I were just in the studio, you know, as so many of our guests were speaking. And we just look at each other like, is this for real?
I know. Yeah. Don't worry about, I want to say, you know, there are many things I could do better in life and that I always seek to do better. But when I look at our lineup, I'm like, wow, very unique. Mm-hmm. The range of topics was incredibly unique. So our intention with this episode is to bring you some of the highlights. If you were one of the people that got to attend camp, it was so great to have you. I think the chat might be one of my favorite parts, seeing you all connect in community. And if you weren't able to attend camp, this is going to be some fire for you, just for inspiration for the week, or really nuggets to help you think differently about some of the major overarching topics that we discussed at camp.
Yeah, so these are a few of our highlights. So this is about 5 minutes of each session, and these full sessions will live in the Almost 30 membership. So as you know, or hopefully you know, we are open for enrollment over at the Almost 30 membership. This is a place where Krista and I really pour into every single day, and we're super proud to open again. We do the membership in like a 6-month season, really, and we're able to go deep with those in the membership in a really protected container. We have monthly workshops, we have live hangs with Krista and I, we have meditations, affirmations, journal prompts, resources for you, and now we're doing giveaways. It's just a really cool, grounded place that you can be yourself and learn and grow and heal.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And it was so powerful to see everyone at camp just really connecting and see all the intentions of everyone to heal and grow and change. And what's nice about the membership is it can be as deep or it's like a buffet. Like you can really pick and choose what you want. If you want to do something every week, we have something every week within the membership. If you want to do something once a month, we have something for you within there. If you can't make a workshop, we have them all recorded. It's just very powerful. And I know that a lot of the information that we share in our workshops and in our live hangs and in our episodes and in all the downloadables, you can't really get anywhere else. And if you love the content with Almost 30 or from Almost 30, you will love everything in the membership. It's just amplified everything that we do, and we're able to really go deeper so that it's more applicable to your life than just listening to a podcast and then maybe moving on with your life.
Totally.
And so just to note, we only have 2 days left of enrollment. So July 31st, 2021, we will close enrollment for the membership for 6 months. It is so powerful to get in now. We've seen such amazing people already. We're already conversing in the community thread. So make sure to go to almost30.com. We have a whole page that has more information on every single thing included in the membership. We have testimonials. You can just get the real vibe, but I cannot wait to meet you guys and welcome you in the membership.
Truly, almost30.com/membership. 2 more days, July 31st at midnight, and we will begin on August 1st.
And we are so grateful that camp was sponsored this year by brands that we really love, by Issue, which is an amazing resource for digital creators. You can use code ALMOST30 to get 50% off a premium subscription. We were also sponsored by Anima Mundi, which is an apothecary, and one of the speakers, Adriana Ayales, is the founder of Anima Mundi, and she is incredibly powerful. It's like my favorite place to get all my witchy spiritual stuff. We were also sponsored by Yoga Wake Up, which fits perfectly into our morning routine. It lets you do yoga and mindfulness wherever you go, and you can use code ALMOST30 to get a free month.
Yes, thank you so much to our sponsors. We were actually the first to open the show with our session. So Krista and I did a session on the stories we tell ourselves, which was just a lot of fun. So you'll hear a highlight from that one. Then up next, Elisa Romeo. Her session was Meet Your Soul. And then Terri Cole. Terri Cole joined us for codependency and boundaries in relationships.
Africa Brooke talked about moving away from self-censorship and into mindful self-expression. Abke talked about the science of reincarnation.
And then Samora Suber joined us from Yoga Wake Up. She did a meditation and light movement on knowing your worth, and it was really, really beautiful.
Up next is Devi Brown. You are limitless. And then Adriana Ayales. She did psychic cleansing techniques through the use of herbs and altars.
Then Jazz the Moon Mother. You are God identifying as healed.
Last but not least is Radhi Devlukia-Shetty. She did conscious living, nourish your mind, body, soul, and planet Earth. We are so grateful to all of the amazing speakers that supported us at camp this year, for the thousands of you that attended this free event that we do to launch and open up our amazing membership container that Lindsey and I truly love. There are only 2 days left to enroll, and if you don't get in this one, you won't be able to come in again until 2022. So make sure you get access to the membership. We are so excited to welcome you. Every single workshop and all the video and all of the details will be within the membership. So if you really loved these snippets, you can find all of the full workshops within the membership.
Yes, almost30.com/membership. Thank you as always for listening. We love you. Thank you to our speakers, our sponsors, and we will see you on the other side.
Almost30.com, and you can go to the membership page to sign up.
The way I work with ego is, the ego is who we think we are. And that includes our memories, our interpretations, the narratives of our experiences, and also how we understand other people to understand ourselves. So we just have an idea culturally of what is and isn't acceptable in our family and with our friends. And those judgments and interpretations are all part of our ego. And like the iceberg, the ego is that little top part above the surface, but under the surface is this massive land chunk that is a part of the same entity, but we only see what's on the surface. So we all are multidimensional beings, meaning there's Elisa Romeo, so who I think I am. I'm a mom, I'm a therapist, whatever. I love chocolate. I hate zucchini, so my stories about myself. I'm Italian. There's stories around that culturally of like how I'm passionate and how I push food on people. Anyone who comes to my house, I'll be a little uncomfortable until you partake of something. Those are those egoic stories, which also, so it doesn't mean they're not important. Food is love for me. Food is meaningful. So that's an important part of my value system, but it is still within who I think I am, my ego. Then there's who you are as a soul, who you are as an energy, who you are as an eternal being. And that's when people talk about authenticity, I see that as that's our most authentic part, because that's the part of us that is, it doesn't change. It is the love that you came from and the love that you're going back to and the love that you are behind all those stories underneath the water of the iceberg. Soul is the part of us that is all loving, it's all knowing, and it's always there behind the noise. And even if we think it's not there, soul doesn't care if you believe in it. The same way like the law of gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. So I don't really get caught up on convincing people or I'm not interested in converting anyone to soul. It's just the term I use to reference the very real felt experience I've had of her. And I've helped thousands of people also connect to the very real felt experience of themselves as love, as that. So talking to soul is basically talking to love. So I think one thing as humans we do a lot is we get stuck in beta state in our brain. And so it's like that Einstein idea that you can't solve a problem from the energy level in which it's created. So this insanity of, I have a problem, well, how can I solve it? Let me sit with my journal and write a pros and cons list. And then we go in circles and circles, but not elevating our energy or our true perspective to a place outside of our narratives and our stories and our ego interpretation. So how do we open to a different energy dimension, a higher elevation, so that we can, I call it sometimes going up to the penthouse. Like if you're at a hotel at the beach and there's a building between you and the beach, you're not going to see the beach from the ground floor. But if you go up to the penthouse and look out, there's the beach. So with our problems and our interpretations of ourselves, we need to first raise our energy so that we can see the whole setup from a different place. In that moment, you really have to be like spiritual warrior of like, no, I'm going to fight for love. I'm going to fight through the old epigenetic patterns in my family, the old histories I have of like where my limitations are. And I'm going to really just like hold strong to hearing what love wants to tell you. So what I want to do, I'm checking with my soul. So what I do is I go from beta state to theta state and I check in with my soul, Sophia, and I ask her, what's next? Where are we going? I'm just doing an energetic check on everyone, and everyone seems to be on board. So just like I can feel everybody's energy attuned to it. Great. So let's start with a little meditation. I know that was a lot to go from here's a whole bunch of info to now we're going to just have a little experience of that part of ourselves. So everybody take a couple breaths. Get comfortable in your chair, your body. Say hello to yourself, because it's just nice to do a check-in. Notice if there's any tension anywhere in your face, your neck, your belly. If you have any tension or thoughts about, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I'm going to do it right, I don't know, just say hello to it. Acknowledge where that is. And then on your exhale, you can breathe out. I like to do stuff as colors, so you can just breathe out any gray energy or any energy of that fear in the body and see it as a color leaving your nostrils. And then the next thing I like to do, because I'm very somatic, is to take a hand and put it on my heart. And that helps me to just energetically come into my heart and feel that area. And just notice how your heart's doing. It's good to check in on our heart. And how are you feeling? See if you can list 3 emotional words. 3 sometimes is a lot for people, but see if you can do 3 feeling words of how you're feeling right now. We have the physical words like tired, hungry, sleepy, and then feeling words can also be exhausted, hopeful, fearful, encouraged, ambivalent, resistant, excited. So 3 feeling words of how you're doing right now. Great. And now I want you to set the intention, because all of energy work always comes from intention. And so much happens as soon as we set that intention. Even if we think nothing's happening, something happens when we set that intention. So it doesn't matter what you think is happening. That's the part of the iceberg above the surface. What matters is that energetic intention. So place that intention that you want to meet your soul. You want to have a moment with her or him. I default to her because there's so much spiritual language around him. So I like to just say her. But if your soul feels masculine, feel free to just replace that in your head. Set that intention to connect to the oldest, wisest, most loving part of yourself. We're sending out a bat signal, an energetic prayer that we want to be in relationship, in conscious relationship with that part of ourselves. think of a time you felt all love and you felt like you were a child of this universe that was on purpose and meant to be here. And you can set the intention of how you want to feel. But now we're going to open up to, it's a relationship. So we want to become in present time in relationship to that energy. You might see an image, a memory. And some people will hear a phrase of how she chooses to speak with you right now. And you can ask her what she wants you to know in this moment. What does love want you to know?
When something happens to someone you care about, I'm going to ask you to check your urgency. Because if that happening to the person you love instantly actually feels like it just happened to you, and it now becomes your problem to solve, you know exactly what I'm talking about with the urgency. It's like, I'm on Google. I am doing this thing. I am figuring this out for you, basically. And of course, we can't actually do that, but that is the experience. It also comes into, when we talk about codependency, a lot of people don't identify with it. So in the book, I talk about high functioning codependency, because I didn't identify with being codependent, because I was thinking more like old school Melody Beatty, codependent no more. I must be involved with an addict, right? If I'm not enabling, then I'm not codependent. That was sort of the view of the day. So when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, I'm just a lover like that, right? Like, I'm just like Mother Teresa, you know me, I'll help anyone. But I really got from a very brilliant therapist that what was really happening was that anyone's life not being in order the way that I thought it should be, or really being a shit show, was really disturbing my inner peace. So what I really wanted was to fix that problem so I could get back to my harmonious life that I had created. So that perspective was like a perspective smack in the face to me, because it made me really have to look at myself, because I liked to think of myself, as we all do, as like a good person. Like, I was being loving, trying to save my sister from that abusive relationship or whatever I was doing, when I really understood that I needed to, A, learn what the hell a boundary was, but B, be able to tolerate my feelings of discomfort and respect that other people are on their own journey in life. And that really was a shift, because when you have healthy emotional boundaries, we can be loving with the people in our lives. We can stay lovingly connected to the people in our lives and know that they are on their own path. And we are really literally not the boss of them, even with children, right? I mean, obviously minor kids, we've got to make sure they're okay, but they're not extensions of parents, right? They are individuals. And so there's something very important about having those types of boundaries. So one of the big blocks to doing this is having the disease to please. So does that sound like any of you? Does that sound familiar? Because really, how many of us were taught to be nice above any other virtue? Nobody was like, make sure you go out and have an amazing career. Like, not in my life. It was like, be a good girl, be nice, be kind, be loving, be helpful. So again, as I said before, we're raised and praised for being self-abandoning codependents, but this disease to please is part of this downloaded codependency and disordered boundaries blueprint that is right here in your unconscious mind. So do you say yes when you really want to say no? And you feel free to please just put it in the chat. We've got a lot of yeses, a couple of no's, some people feeling guilty about it. Yep, all the time. Okay, so that's the first question. Do you apologize often? Not only when you're not sorry, but when you're mad. Anybody? Somebody would bump into me when I was in my 20s on the subway. I would be like, I would just reflexively, just reactively say, oh, I'm sorry. And then later I'd be like, why am I sorry? That person ran me over. Oh my God. So apologizing, sort of using apologizing as like social KY a little bit, not to be gross, but like a social lubricant, because what we really, really want, and I'm going to be moving on to this. The third question is, do you avoid confrontation at all costs? That's where the social KY would come in, where it's like the social lubricant of being sorry, really, because we want to avoid a conflict, even if we know we need it, even if we know we need to have a conversation, but we have such fear of being rejected or someone else's anger. That was a big fear of mine personally, because I grew up in a family system where anger was one of those forbidden emotions. So anybody getting mad, I was like, oh, hey, that's a problem. I'm out. Like, I would just end relationships with boyfriends if they got this mad. I remember my college boyfriend being like, so I can never, ever get mad. I was like, right. He was like, okay, well, I'll do my best, but I don't know if that's possible. And the last question for you to determine if you have the disease to please is, do you put everyone else's needs above your own? So it's like there's always someone else that needs something. It's like if the friend says, but I'd really like to do this, are you just like, fine, I'm easy breezy, no problem, like that? But really what I'm saying is that we end up quite a bit, if that part is true for you, sort of being last on our own list, right? So I'm inviting you, and this is also in the PDF that I'm giving you, that I'm inviting you to take 24 hours, and I want you to write down anytime you did one of those actions, saying yes when you really wanted to say no, apologizing when you weren't sorry or pissed off using the social KY. Do you avoided confrontation at all costs, even though you knew you should have had it, and put everyone else's needs above your own? So this 24-hour awareness raising activity will give you like a snapshot of where you are right now in this process. And here's the thing, all of this work, and as a psychotherapist for the last 25 years, like, listen, this is a no judgment zone, right? We were set up to not know any of this stuff. So we're basically in the Wild West, learning on our own. Nobody taught you. So I'm really also going to invite you to approach this with compassion for yourself, for the child in you, for what you didn't learn, for how much we have all suffered in our lives because of having disordered boundaries and being codependent. I mean, for me personally, it was that level of suffering that finally got me in therapy I was in therapy for a long time, but really understanding what needed to change, because it's so tempting to look out and be like, well, if my boss just wasn't a douche, or if my best friend just hadn't betrayed me, or if my partner hadn't done this, then everything would be fine. But then what happens is we realize, we are the common denominator. We're lovers. Like we actually are. We do not want to intentionally do something terrible to someone else, or do harm to ourselves. And yet these patterns that we learned creates these problems. And where the most important part of why you want to figure out where you have the disease to please the most, understanding your downloaded codependency blueprint, really getting a handle on boundaries, is because so much of what we do when we are using these disordered or dysfunctional ways of interacting in our life is that we're saying yes when we want to say no. And what does that mean? That means that we are giving the people in our life, and really the most important people, corrupted information about who we are. So how can anyone authentically love us if we never actually allow them to authentically know us? Like, I spent years erecting a false self, and that false self is very, very loved, but I am very, very lonely because I don't feel seen, heard, known. It's never too late to become who you might have been. You can still be that person, but this is such pivotal work. this whole thing with boundaries. And I wrote Boundary Boss because what I saw in my practice, I thought, when I was learning it myself, I was like, maybe I'm just flawed. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my problems. And then I became a psychotherapist and I was like, holy shit, this is a full-on epidemic. These highly successful, usually women, clients, who are literally running the world, like actually, and they're in so much pain and they don't feel known and they're so upset. So anyway, I walk you through all of this stuff in the book as well, of course. All right, let's also talk about the next big block to doing these things is over-functioning. So I'm just going to ask you, do you find yourself doing more than your share? Do you find yourself where you are over-functioning, maybe a romantic relationship, and the other person is under-functioning?
But with awareness, the first thing that I want you to think about is, where am I holding back from honoring what I really think? Sounds like such a simple question, but you would be surprised. You would be surprised at the amount of people, including myself at times, we don't even ask ourselves the simplest questions. Where am I holding back from honoring what I really think? And we can also dive into the word honor here a little bit. The word honor means personal integrity. Personal integrity. I really invite you again to write that word somewhere, integrity, and to try and attach it to your identity in some kind of way, because it's very, very important. And I would go as far as to say, now more than ever, it is very important. So where am I holding back from honoring what I really think? Where am I holding back from expressing a different view? And my goodness, I'm sure we know this one very well. Expressing a different view today in 2021 is something so many people are so afraid of. Just to say, you know what, actually, I don't agree with that. I feel quite differently, but you still feel afraid to voice a different view. Just do a little bit of self-reflection just on that. And I don't want you to judge whatever comes up, okay? This is not about ruminating. This is not about making it a thing. Just start to get curious. Where am I holding back from expressing a different view, be it privately or publicly? I really want you to think about that, because it falls under awareness, which is the first pillar. What am I truly afraid of? So based on the information that I have, now I know that, okay, I could be honoring myself in these areas of my life. I have these views that are maybe not the most popular, or maybe it just seems as if they're not that popular because no one's fucking talking about them, right? Once you have collected the data in that area, what are you truly afraid of? What are you truly afraid of? Are you afraid of being cast out by the community? It's a very big one. It's a very big one, and it's a really human thing. We don't need to pathologize. We don't need to make it a whole show. It's the reality of life. We need connection. We want to feel connected, whether it's with our online community or whether it's with our actual community, be it our lovers, our partners, our family, our friends. What am I truly afraid of? Because only when you know what it is you're truly afraid of can you shift something. And we're not even talking about big shifts. You can shift something. So I can see some things popping up. People are afraid of being misunderstood. People are afraid of coming off as too strong. People are afraid of exile, which is it's a very visceral feeling, to feel like I am going to be exiled from my community for saying how I feel. I can see that someone else said literal safety, which again, it's a very human thing. I completely understand that. Being afraid of judgment, right? So based on all of these things, okay, abandonment is a very big one. Abandonment is a very big one. Being a bitch, someone else just said, being perceived as cold or harsh. So just make a list of all of these things. What am I actually afraid of? So there's something that I want to say. I know that I want to start honoring myself. Okay, so what am I truly afraid of? So let's say it's punishment. Let's say it's being exiled. Let's say it's people having the wrong perception. Are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to take the risk? And again, we're still in awareness, which is the first pillar. Are you willing to take the risk? Yes or no? Are you? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Good. Someone else said no, and I really appreciate your honesty, because you're not saying this to make me happy. Okay, this is not about what Africa wants to hear. This is about you. Are you willing to take the risk, even if you're shit scared? Are you willing to take the risk? And if you are, it's about starting small. You don't have to go the whole way. It doesn't have to be public. You start in here. Okay, you don't even externalize anything yet. And I say that because I really want you to realize you can remove so much of this pressure from yourself by having the idea that just because you've decided, you know what, I'm gonna take the risk to be in personal integrity, I'm gonna do it. It's an inside job. And I know that saying can sound cliche and cheesy. I'm okay with that. But it has to start with your thoughts. You have to start allowing yourself to think differently. That's just the first part. Allow yourself to think a little bit differently. Allow yourself to have those wrong thoughts. It's a challenge. It's just a challenge. You don't have to stick to it. Just say, you know what, I'm just going to allow myself to think differently. It's a very internal process, and it ties in with awareness, because we do have this idea that we have to externalize everything. That's why we feel so afraid, because we think we have to share our minds. And because of how digital everything is now, we think we have to share it publicly. You don't. You don't. It really starts with you. You have to allow yourself to have those thoughts. Allow yourself to open those doors in your mind. Allow yourself to feel a little bit dangerous. That is a risk. That is a risk. And you start small. And you say, actually, I don't agree. Try that. Actually, I don't agree. Or to say, I feel differently about this because. Try. It can be as seemingly simple as that. And again, this is where we realize there's perceived danger, which is usually in our minds. Of course, sometimes it's very real. I'm not undermining that. Self-censorship can really be a safety net for some people because it allows them to be physically safe, material safety. I understand that. However, we are talking about in here. In here, start small. You're having a conversation and you say, actually, I don't agree. Or if you don't want to use that very specific language, which I would say you should challenge yourself to do if you feel safe to do that, right? And it's practice. You only have to do something for the first time once. And that is it. And that is it. And say, actually, I feel differently about this because, or if you, and this is a big one, if you don't have anything to say, you don't have to agree. I don't know enough to give my opinion about this. It means you don't choose self-censorship. You choose to say, actually, I don't know enough to have a fully formed opinion. I say that all the time. I don't. And it allows me to not censor myself or to agree with something that I don't believe in. What can someone do once you say, I don't know enough to have an opinion? And it's still true. And it allows you to build that confidence, the confidence to not know. The confidence to not know. How about that? The confidence to not know. So that is the awareness pillar that I want you to think about. Okay, when you're deciding whether you want to speak about something or you don't, or you're feeling quite conflicted, really think about the awareness piece. What am I not honoring? What am I actually afraid of? And is this an actual threat or a perceived threat? The second thing that I want to talk about, and this is one of my favorite ones, okay? If you're familiar with me and my work, you will know that I bang on about this quite a bit, and it's for good reason. The next pillar of self that I want to talk about is responsibility. Isn't that one of the most erotic words you have heard? Responsibility. Self-responsibility specifically, okay? Someone said, yes, hot stuff. Yeah, see? And when I say responsibility, what I'm talking about, someone said, no, we're going to go there. Okay. Responsibility. When I talk about it, I'm talking about, and again, I'm going to pose some questions because I don't want to tell you what to do. I just want you to filter this through your own self-awareness so you can come to a conclusion. If something is not useful in anything that I say, you don't have to take it. Okay. You just lovingly leave it to the side for someone else. But when I talk about responsibility, I want you to think, what are my values? What are my values? And something that I find when I work with clients or when I talk to people is that a lot of us aren't able to actually say, these are my values. However, intuitively, we know them. Because when your values get crossed, which usually tie in with boundaries, you feel that internal ouch, right? And I'm sure you know what I mean. Everyone knows what the internal ouch is. But it's really important that you are able to articulate your boundaries, especially when your boundaries and your values, especially when it comes to moving out of self-censorship and moving into self-expression. It's really important. So I can give you a few of mine. So my biggest one is integrity. So I am willing to be in integrity, even if it's so uncomfortable. I'm willing. It's a commitment that I have to make. It's a commitment that allows me to live a fuller life, and not a fuller life in the kind of surface level, vague way, but a life that feels really full, a life where I don't have to deprive myself of connections with people. Okay. So integrity is very, very important to me, and transparency is really important to me, and truth is very important to me. And I also know that my truth is not the ultimate truth, which is why I have to be willing to listen to people that I don't agree with, which is why I have to be willing to accept that people won't agree with me. But how can I know any of these things if I'm censoring myself? So I really want you to think about what your values are, right? You don't have to say them all right now, but it's just something that I invite you to think about going forward. And what do I stand for? What do you stand for? So there's something that you are not saying, or something that you really wish you could say, or something that you're witnessing in the world and you feel the complete opposite, and it's just causing a lot of conflict inside. Or maybe it's something small, maybe it's something big. But when you want to come to the point of making a conscious decision about how you move forward with expressing yourself, you have to know what it is you stand for. You have to know what it is you stand for. And I would love to know if you can just type in one word in the chat right now, because it's popping up, so I'll see it. What is it that you stand for? So someone typed in freedom, right? Love and kindness, equity, truth, compassion, love, respect, help, sovereignty, truth, respect, kindness. See, you know what you stand for. These things that you stand for are your values. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. Peace, love, fairness, choice. Oh, I love that. Autonomy, love, grace, authenticity. You know what you stand for. And when you know what you stand for and you really embody that, you feel that through your entire body, even if it's uncomfortable. Because the thing is, here's the thing, and I'm seeing this really play out in the culture that we're in right now. There's this idea that everything needs to be comfortable. It doesn't. It doesn't. This is not me saying you need to be in pain, because I don't want you to be in pain. However, I want you to have the capacity. I really want you to have the capacity to hold discomfort so that you can grow, so that you can encounter different people, so that you can have exchanges, so that you can be able to have healthy disagreement, so that you don't have to be over attached to what people think about you, to what people think about your opinions, so that you don't have to be over attached to who you were last week, last year, 10 years ago, because that's a very big fear for a lot of people right now. And I understand it, but we have to be able to cultivate the capacity for discomfort. We have to be. And that ties in with responsibility, the second pillar. I am responsible for what I want to share.
Each universe is sort of an octave of experience that the one infinite creator is having. And so the following universe is actually built upon all of the knowledge and information that's gained in the previous universe. So it's a pretty amazing concept. Now, if you understand the 7 chakras, which I'm sure most of you have at least a basic understanding of what energies those chakras represent, then you can really understand the 7 densities, because each density is represented within each chakra of the human soul. So you could also look at it like this. Our 7 chakras, the 7 densities rather, are sort of like the 7 chakras of the universe. So in that way, the human being really is like the microcosm of the macrocosm. So we see the root chakra represents the first density, the sacral chakra represents the second density, and so on and so forth up the 7 chakras. So we're going to talk about each chakra and juxtapose it to the density that it matches, so you can see the similarities of how they correlate with water. So the first density of consciousness is correlated to the red ray or root chakra, of course. And that is the density of essentially just pure being, where the source creates the universe, and it spends a couple of billion years, at least according to our science, in the stage of just being the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and prana. And so after a couple of billion years of consciousness experiencing what it's like to be in space and time as the 5 elements, we know that planets begin to form, and then life begins to form on those planets. So in the first density, the body that the soul inhabits is just purely atomic, right? Just the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, or prana. And this is how consciousness learns how to exist in time and space. And so to open that chakra in a basic sense requires faith and trust in the divine and self-love or self-acceptance. After consciousness spends a couple billion years, it begins to evolve, as we know through our science, into microbial life, and eventually plants and insect and animal life. And this represents the second density of consciousness, where consciousness learns growth and movement, and it sort of gets to interact with the environment. And this correlates to the second chakra of the orange ray. Now, in the second density, the body is a chemical and atomic body, being plants, animals, and insects. So all biological life that has movement, you could say, is a second density life form. And our science tells us that happened for about 2 billion years on our planet, as consciousness learns the awareness through growth and movement and interaction with the environment, and then eventually evolves into self-awareness, which would be the third density. Now, the sacral chakra or orange ray represents our relationship to ourselves. And so the sacral chakra is going to be blocked by things like emotional traumas, self-criticism, self-judgment. Any desire to possess another, whether physically or sexually, or to be possessed, would represent an orange ray blockage, and addictions. So you can see how these are kind of all relationship to self issues. And they're opened, of course, by self-love and self-forgiveness. So as the soul is learning in this human lifetime right now to balance these chakras and heal them, the soul is doing that in the densities of many hundreds of lifetimes in each density, spanning billions of years over the course of time. So as life experiences awareness, it eventually evolves into self-awareness. And as far as we know on this planet, human beings are the only animal, we might say, that has evolved full self-awareness, which means that consciousness understands I as a separate entity exist. I am. And that is where the ego is first evolved in human consciousness. So the body we have here in third density, and each one of us right now has a third density body as we sit here, is a chemical body. This, according to the law of one, the third density only lasts about 75,000 years. And that sounds like a really long time compared to a human lifetime. But if you compare it to the other densities, which are millions and billions of years long, third density is kind of like the snapping of a finger. It's the twinkling of an eye, and it's over in the grand scheme. And that is for a couple of really important reasons. The first reason that third density is the shortest and the most intense density is, if you see at the top of the screen, it represents self-awareness and the choosing. Now, the choosing, as the law of one says, is when our soul chooses between the positive polarity and the negative polarity. And this is a really pivotal choice that the soul has to make. Do I want to continue my evolutionary journey for the next some odd millions of years as a positively polarized being or a negatively polarized being? That represents, in the law of one terms, the service to others path is the positive, and the service to self path is the negative. And so this is where consciousness basically is veiled from all of its former lifetimes as plants, insects, and animals. We come into this third density life with absolutely no memory or any reference frame at all. And this is a big teaching in the law of one that sounds a bit radical to people, which is that the source doesn't blink at the light or the darkness. You know, the difficulties of human life is not how the entire evolutionary journey is experienced. And in fact, it's only in this third density life that it is like that. So the third density, of course, correlates to the yellow ray chakra, or the solar plexus, which represents our relationship with other selves. So it's kind of like our social survival as an animal. So this chakra is going to be blocked by things like insecurity, which is, of course, the fear of how other people see me, jealousy and pride, desire to control or be controlled by others, manipulating truth to manipulate others into believing something is a distortion, desiring to be worshipped by others or worshiping others could be another distortion, and victimization, believing that others are superior or inferior to me and can victimize me. These are all different distortions in the yellow ray chakra. And so you can see with these first three, the red, orange, and yellow, these are sort of the primal energy centers that represent our human nature. And each energy center gets a little bit more complex in its distortions, right? As we sort of add a different foundation on each and every chakra. So all of the chakras are opened by more or less the same things: forgiveness of self, love of self, and in this case, forgiveness and love of the other.
Notice what your heart feels like right now. Take another deep inhale. Beautiful, long exhale, centering, grounding, connecting to self. Deep inhale. Exhale, notice how your body feels, what sensations might come up. Just be with yourself, be here, be present. Good. Continue to breathe. Deep conscious breath, being really mindful of how your breath feels moving in and out of your body. We're making time for ourselves, making time to reconnect to the most important person in the world, which is you. Nurture yourself right now. Be with yourself right now.
Let's set an intention for what we are looking to bring forward with the next 30 minutes we'll spend together. And that intention can be as simple as, my intention is to anchor into the present moment. Really inviting in the opportunity to hear fully, to hear clearly, to be undistracted. And it can also be, my intention for this moment together is to transform, is to heal. Whatever feels most resonant for you, trust the voice that's coming through in this moment. And let's set a supportive intention honoring that voice. And now that our intentions are set, you can release the hold on your heart, on your abdomen. You can wiggle your fingers, your toes. And now gently open your eyes. Well, that felt good. All right, let's get to it. You are limitless, and being able to live a truly limitless life which means a life where you don't have that ceiling, a life where you don't have a lid. There's not a point that you can go and then go no farther. Limitless life means expansive. It means abundant. It means taking up space. And to really do that, you have to work your process, but you have to work it in real time, minute by minute. It's not enough to be hoarding all these tools and buying all the spiritual books and taking the courses. If you are only remembering what you should have done as you're in the shower replaying conversations or at the end of your day, you are utilizing these tools. You are here in this moment to have things that you can actively rely upon, to have things that you can actively connect to in each moment. These tools are important not just to shed our past and not just to be in a place of healing the wounds that we've experienced, but your daily process is incredibly important for the minute by minute refining that is necessary for living a big life, for living an abundant life and a life without a life without limits. And so when we're in that space and we're working our process in real time, that can look like I'm at the traffic light and I'm getting really upset. And instead of just allowing that upsetness for whatever is happening, maybe it's someone that cut me off, maybe it's me frustrated with the way that I use my time, just taking a moment in that exact second to show up for you in real time by taking a breath and then investigating, what am I really upset about? What is the deeper experience? And when you get into the groove of working your process in real time, minute by minute refinements, minute by minute mastery, what happens is those moments become less and less. So where you might have been investigating something and it might have really kind of sat you down for the weekend to work through, you're now moving through in 30 seconds, 60 seconds. You're moving through it in an afternoon because you've been showing up actively in each moment, constantly moving away debris. Because when we get into this space of mastery, it is less about sometimes the bigger breakthroughs. You might have really experienced thus far some profound breakthroughs in your life. The mastery is in the crevices. The mastery is in those mini moments where you are diving in and pulling out, where you're in remembrance of your wholeness and your power. To live limitless means that there is this deep internal belief and deep internal knowing that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you are whole, and that you have immeasurable power residing inside of you. Every single person watching right now, all close to 1,000, every single person watching right now has unbounded potential and unbounded power inside of them. But when you stay in limited mindset, when you stay in that role of your culturally created self, which is you showing up, playing roles for people, you showing up, having a mask, saying something you didn't really feel, saying yes to something you knew you wanted to say no to. When you're in that space, you get to really harness your internal majesty, your personal power. And when you do, it commands the world. It commands everyone. And every one of us has that ability.
A clear intention. So obvious almost, but this is everything. This is the elemental that literally shifts and shapes the altar you're creating and building. If there is no clarity in direction, the altar will not actually serve much of a purpose. If you're not putting the symbolic pieces to this altar aligned to the specific intention, it won't match. It won't be that conversion space between spirit and you in that powerful way. So you have to be really sure that frequency is aligned in that sense. What intention do you have now? It doesn't have to be something major. It doesn't have to be something life-changing. It can be very simple. It can be a gratitude practice that really shapes that gratitude into the best way possible on a symbolic level when you're building this. Elementals. So this is all the actual physical elements, and obviously intentional, meaning the headspace, the mind, the frequency. Elementals you bring into your altar space. So fire, air, earth, and water. We will go into this in the next slide as to what that really means on a physical level. Cardinal directions are major. And these are metaphysical spaces within our body and in the physical realm that you use to invoke specific archetypal energies into your life. And this is extremely powerful. When I started working truly in the cardinal directions within my own body, I really started feeling the archetypal presences that would speak in my mind, and really where you receive psychic messages, insights, intuitive energy, because you know how to discern. You know, it's that magical process of discernment, as in what's really intuitive, what is a habit, what kind of mental energy you're really channeling, because these altars are really made for a space to channel information. And then ofrendas. Ofrendas are divine offerings. It's the gift you return to the gods. This is where you ask yourself, what can I offer back to the spirit realm for them to give back to me? So it's like this beauty of reciprocity. What can you offer? And this is where all the delicious foods and feasts, and classically you see this in traditions all over the world, of people using, you know, delicious meals left on the altar. So the deities or archetypal energies or spirits come and really nourish and feast of the altar, and in return provide gifts. So here in this picture is kind of like a classic setup of really having all the elementals in one space. You have your fire, your air, the herbs, which are earth, the eggs for cleansing, setting intentions, and then soon to be water, which will be poured in the glass. So going into the cardinal spaces. So these are metaphysical spaces where energy is conducted through. But in traditions that I am from, the heart space is vital for these cardinal energies to actually work. So an open heart, it's like the axis mundi, it's called. It's the center, it's the core center of these cardinal spaces that has to be in effect, vibrating a specific frequency in order for these energies to pour in through your mind and body. So this is vital in your process of building an altar and receiving psychic energy. When your heart is open, you literally alchemize your frequency to be able to be a receptacle where you can actually receive messages from spirit. When the heart is shut, whether we're going through a process of transformation and change, and it might be tough sometimes to tap into our heart, but at least go in that process of really unshielding the heart, taking away anything that might be in there, so you can really visualize the downpour of energy that comes through you through this process of altar building. Every element in any part of your altar to really work with you in this moment in time. So as you can imagine, air, the classic one we see is smoke. So smoke cleansing, we call it limpias de fuego. So fire rituals are very much aligned, tied with that one, with the north. So it can be anything you're burning and moving and creating that space. It can be everything you're receiving and intending. It can be your prayer, spoken word, ways that you declare what you want here and now in the season of yourself. So this is a very powerful part of this whole altar building because it shapes what the altar will be about. So be aware of anything you're cleansing and burning, and we will review this in a bit, but the actual tools that you're burning, like the herbs that you're burning, very much have to be in alignment with what you're intending. So of course, we nowadays see sage and copal and palo santo and so many of the classics, which are really amazing. But something as simple as dandelion, comfrey, rosemary, classic kitchen herbs like kitchen witchery, those herbs have been used since ancient times in ritual processes, very much so. Like parsley is very much associated with the north. And parsley you can find everywhere. You can grow it basically in your backyard, at least in most parts of the world at this time of the year, or in the northern hemisphere at least. So it's very easy to work. And it's so important when you work with what's around you because it already is in symbiosis with you. And that's what makes it even more important. So yes, parsley, simple, fantastic. Thyme, simple, fantastic, north oriented plant to receive and really do the download process of your magic making. So the east, very much where we receive the vision of our future self, very much what we call in, what you really want to be, what you want to really nourish and create for yourself, mentally, physically, in all senses. So this is much the alchemy of what you're creating. This is the true fire. So here the fire and the air work very much together. Without fire, the smoke cleansing won't happen, right? So you really have to see the symbiosis of those two, the intention as well as the future self that you're trying to bring in, or praying to, or romancing in a beautiful way through this altar. So very much the new beginnings, transmissions. So this is also a place where you really transmit energy and frequency into this space and time. The south, earth, how you connect to the earth below you. Grounding, literally being barefoot on the ground as you're even building your altar. If you have that in your possibilities, you could even be at a park or on a trail. You can even do altars that you leave in nature. You can be nature bathing, right? It's such a beautiful process. You can be walking in nature, creating altars around trees that really connected to you, and really do your ofrenda, your offering into that tree. So it's really beautiful to connect to the earth just by simply being grounded. And that can even be part of your ritual. You know, it doesn't have to be some extravagant process. But if you're connected elementally and honoring the cardinal space of that process, it's already like a formula. It's like kicking into effect.
Jazz is so special and unique, and she's really here to share her gifts as a presence of remembrance. She reminds you to awaken and align to your truest identity as God. She works with seekers to support them in unearthing their soul's purpose and self-sovereignty. Amen. Through the lens of embodied human design. I would love to start the human design conversation in the chat. She suspends the space needed to enter the void. Unify with your essence and express your vision. Let's welcome Jazz.
It's okay to pace yourself. It's okay to not be on the same time schedule as everyone else. Everything moves in seasons. And that is the biggest thing that I want all of us to take from this, is that we are seasonal beings. And I'm not just talking about the 4 seasons in a circle or on a clock. We have seasons. Within those seasons, we have cycles. Within those cycles, we have phases. So just because you're in a certain phase today doesn't mean that that's going to be the same phase, cycle, or season that you're going to be in tomorrow. We have timelines that we can jump at any moment. It's infinite. The possibilities are infinite. And when we're coming and looking at life through the lens of identifying as whole, healed, embodied, God, nothing is disturbing us, because we're not attached to the duality of our planetary sphere. We understand that this planet is here for duality. We understand that we need duality and contrast to grow. We understand these things. And because we understand them on a very subtle level, you all understand exactly what I'm saying. On a very subtle level, you don't even have to have the definition of it. We have to learn to navigate it. This is self-sovereignty. This is self-authoritative shit. Yes, the world is this wild place, but how are you going to navigate it? How are you going to show up so that you can express the vision that is inside of you? Through this revelation, I created something unintentionally. I didn't even really mean to create it. I went into meditation. And when I came out, I wrote down these 10 seasons. And when I read them back to myself, I realized that these seasons have been my journey so far. So I would love to share them with you all really quickly to kind of give you an orient point. A lot of times we think that we're so much further than where we need to go. And actually, we're probably just on time. So I'm going to move through these. And if you don't catch all of them, don't worry, they're on my Instagram and you guys can always go back and reread them. So season 1, I started with season 1, okay? Season 1 is living in survival identity. Season 1 is all about literally having your head down. You're just grinding it out. You're just trying to make ends meet. And the thing that you're here to really move through is that survival identity is not the only identity. There's so many other identities past this one. Your obstacle is that you're not seeing a way out, but I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. So if you're in season 1, living in survival identity, there's a way out for you. Season 2 is a glimmer of an alternate existence. Okay, so these are the people that have picked up their heads. They're kind of seeing that the world doesn't only have to be one way. They're seeing that there's many more things past just surviving. But their obstacle is that they don't believe that they can have it too. They believe that it's only for other people. That's not true. You can have it too. Season 3 is for when you enter the void, okay? You've realized, I don't want to live that life anymore. I want to do something about it. And I know that everyone keeps talking about going within, going within, going within. So I'm finally gonna go within. And your obstacle is that you're being swept up in every direction, because the void is a very vast place. And so for you, you really want to be in a space, in a community that really can hold you when you're in the void, because the void is trust me, the void is not to be messed with, okay? It will spit you out if you do not come with correct intentions. And so you really want to be held by a community when you're in that season. Season 4 is when you're going through your survival identity death, which many people call the ego death, right? You're calling in a new God identity. But you're trying to understand, who will I be when this new identity comes? And your obstacle is trying to know it all before releasing. Then we move into our God identity rebirth. And here we're battling deservingness. We don't really fully believe that we're God. We don't really fully believe that we can have all the things. In season 6, we're beginning to express our vision. We've accepted that our God, our true identity is God, as God, and we're now struggling with, or our obstacle is feeling safe to be seen. After that, we move into season 7, where our purpose is expanded. We're getting a little bit more wind under our feet. But our obstacle in this season is to learn that structure supports our growth. It's no longer just manifesting at the top of a dime. We have rituals, we have things that we need to get into. In season 8, our vision becomes refined. We begin to maybe have some predictability if we have a business surrounding this vision. But your obstacle is leaning into your desires so that you can create prosperity and not shaming yourself for the things that you want. And then we move into season 9, where your revolution is ignited. This is the season that I'm in. And the biggest thing that I'm working through right now is holding more than just myself, allowing my vision to be far bigger than I could have ever imagined, not pacing the growth, not trying to make sure that I can keep up with the growth, allowing it to grow past me, and knowing that I have my circle of angels and guides to amplify whatever it is that I'm putting out. Right now, I'm practicing omnipresence. And then we get into season 10, where our legacy is sown, where these things are going to outlive us, where what we created on this planet gets to outlive your physical body. And the obstacle here in season 10 is really giving it all. You're not holding back from anything, This is your full God radiance.
Now we have our final session of the day with the amazing and kind and loving and as magnetic in person as she seems on the internet, the beautiful Radhi Devlukia-Shetty. We're going to be talking about conscious living, nourishing your mind, body, soul, and planet Earth, which is completely aligned with our mission and with what we believe is a message that should be shared with the world. I'm so excited.
Hi everyone, it is so lovely. I wish I could see all your faces. I really, really do. But it is so lovely to meet you. I can feel your energy. For today, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite Ayurvedic rituals and notions that come from Ayurveda to really help with our confidence. So first off, I'm just going to tell you guys what Ayurveda actually means. I'm sure many of you have come across it before, but Ayurveda is the most ancient health science to exist. It's over 5,000 years old, and Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge. So it literally translates to the science of life. It's often referred to as the mother of all healing. And I fell in love with Ayurveda because, oh my gosh, for so many reasons. But the main reason was because health is defined in Ayurveda as not just your physical body. It's defined as your physical, it's the harmony between your mind, body, and soul. And it teaches us how to tune into our body, to it teaches how to tune into our body and how to adapt our life, whether it's external or internal, to create an environment that is optimal for us. And you can see on the slide that I've shown that, Western medicine, and a lot of it's one medicine or one recommendation to fit all. But I always thought about this and I was like, how does that make sense? Because, we are all so unique in so many ways, whether it's our physical body, whether it's our mental state, whether it's our emotions, we are all so different. We're made of the same elements, but in such different quantities and qualities. And so Ayurveda really addresses that. It has such an individual approach, and it just empowers you to understand your body better, to simply be able to nourish yourself in the best way possible. So first off, I'm going to talk about how you wake up in the morning. Now, I don't know whether anybody's touched on this, but I actually started doing this. So I used to wake up and the first thing I do, I still do this, I say a prayer. I wake up, I open my eyes, and I have these beautiful pictures around my room, spiritual pictures that I really connect to, that remind me of the truth that I want to live. And so I'll look at them and I'll say just any prayer that comes to my mind, whether it's praying to God to thank them, whether it's praying to the universe, whether it's thanking God for the breath that I have, whatever is a small prayer. But then I go to my mirror, and when I'm brushing my teeth, when I am, dancing in the shower, I will always tell myself every single day I wake up and I say, today is going to be better than it was yesterday. Now, affirmations are so important. Affirmations are us telling ourselves what we need and what we want to hear, what we want to manifest for the rest of our day. And so it's such a simple phrase. And like, if you're, whether you're with someone or whether you're on your own, I really, really encourage you to say it out loud with me right now. Today is going to be better than it was yesterday.